long COVID or are immunocompromised or have other, autoimmune disorders, and COVID will continue to affect them for a long.
There's a widely held idea that there's a group of vulnerable people that have to take COVID seriously, but that the rest of people, if they don't fall in the category of immunocompromised or having long COVID or elderly, you can just pretty much ignore it. It's just like a cold or flu. Now, aside from being cruel and abandoning a ton of people, a huge swath of society, it's also incorrect, and I think it stems simply from the fact that most people know very little about COVID and don't really understand what it's doing in their body, how it works. They don't know the first thing about it, to be honest. And one way I can prove that is that if I said, what cells does COVID infect? What is it doing in your body? Most people have absolutely no idea. It's not really their fault. Public health is supposed to tell them that. But most people would tell you, I don't know, or it infects your respiratory system. And that's not true. The reason people comparing COVID to the flu is so infuriating is that the flu is a respiratory disease, it enters your respiratory system, and it infects respiratory cells pretty much exclusively. Now, COVID infects things called ACE2 receptors, and they are all over our bodies. They're in the lining of our blood vessels, they're in our kidneys, they're in our heart, they're in our brain, they're pretty much everywhere. And so when someone says COVID feels like the cold or the flu, I don't really care what it feels like. Your blood vessels don't have nerves. There are various parts of your body that COVID can get into that don't have nerves. When a disease feels a certain way, that's usually your immune response. So something that also feels like the flu is HIV. HIV presents with flu-like symptoms for 2 weeks, and then it burrows into your immune system and works away at your immune system for years. So does the fact that HIV feels like the flu tell you very much? No. Like HIV, COVID has various ways of dampening our immune system. So another thing people say is, I barely felt anything. Well, great. Either your system fought it off very quickly and effectively, or if you don't feel very much, it's because your immune system is not revving up and not fighting it. So people are, especially young, healthy people, in quotes, are drawing this conclusion of, I keep on getting this disease repeatedly and it doesn't feel that bad, I must be fine. And what's really happening is that every single time it's like Russian roulette. It may be causing organ damage, it may be messing up your blood vessels, it may be impacting your brain, and every single time is like a roll of the dice. And this is not something you can just roll the dice nonstop. And people are getting COVID 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times. There is a point at which long COVID is almost certain. If you get COVID 12 times or 15 or 20, there's just no way it's good for you. Think about rewind pre-pandemic. If someone said, I've had the flu 20 times in the last 20 years, you would be alarmed. And that's kind of a story that a lot of people are going to have. They're going to say, yep, I had COVID 8 times in the last 10 years. The point I'm trying to make here is that there are not distinct groups of the vulnerable and non-vulnerable. There are people who currently have long COVID and have immune system problems, and there are people who think they're healthy and are developing immune system problems from getting sick repeatedly with a virus that hurts your immune system.